Most of us are always looking for ways to simplify meal planning, right? It is such a big part of our lives, but it can be so stressful if we don't have a good system in place that helps alleviate the stress of planning meals every week. So, today we aren't talking about the routine itself, but I do want to focus on 5 effective strategies that you can use to make this process even simpler.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
Now, like I said, we aren't focusing on the actual meal planning routine and the strategy behind that. So, if you are wanting something like that, then you're going to want to go back to listen to episode 36 for a meal planning method to build quick and healthy weekly menus for your family. And then episode 47 is where you can take my step by step meal planning routine and then make it your own. So, you can start using mine and then just tweak it wherever you need to customize it to make it work for you and your family. So that is going to be more helpful if you're looking for the routine itself. But today we're going to be talking about 5 effective strategies for simple meal planning because these can get overlooked. And even if you don't have a full meal planning routine in place, this is still going to help you because you can start making some tweaks and use these strategies in the meantime until you build a full meal planning routine. And it's still going to help you alleviate some of that stress. So, I'm going to get right into it. Number one is you don't want to start from scratch. And I'm not talking about the ingredients themselves, I'm talking about planning. When you are planning out what to have for meals and what to have on hand for breakfast and lunches and snacks and all the things, you don't want to start from scratch because what happens when you are feeling overwhelmed, you're exhausted, and you have to sit down to plan out all your meals for the week? You sit down and you look at a blank page, and all of a sudden, all of the ideas that you had in the last how many weeks or how many days that have been filling your brain about things that you can try, and oh, we should make that at home. You sit down to a blank piece of paper, and it's like your brain has completely blanked out, and then it's more stressful trying to figure out what you were thinking and what you want to put down. And all of a sudden, like all of your meal ideas are just gone. And it's adding more stress to try and figure out what to do. So I love using some brainstorm sessions where you can just not focus on what you're actually planning for the week, but just sit down with a piece of paper and just write out all these different meal ideas that you know you enjoy these types of meals. You know your family enjoys these types of meals. If you have family members in the home that can give you their favorite meal ideas, just write them all down onto a piece of paper and you've got a brainstormed meal ideas list. This means that when you are sitting down to plan out your meals, you don't have to go back and use your brain power to think of all of those different meal ideas. You can pull out this idea list and just start filling in for the days that you need meal ideas, and it can be done in seconds without any stress. And when you have a meal idea list like this, you know that all of the meals on this list are things that your family actually enjoys. So not only are you taking the stress out from having to make those decisions and think about everything on the spot, but you're also creating a menu that you know you and your family will actually eat. So you can also use this method with you don't have a full list yet, although those are super helpful. You can also look back if you use the same type of meal planning method that I use and I talk about on this podcast. It's using a wall calendar, like a super simple, wall calendar that you can hang up. Because what happens is when you are using a wall calendar like this, you end up getting all these meal plans over and over and over each week. And all of a sudden, you have a history of meal plans. And if you're really feeling stuck, you can just flip back into previous pages, into the previous months, and see exactly what you guys had for that week. And you can pull ideas. You can either copy a week completely if you really don't want to think about it, or you can just take different pieces of each week and put something together really quickly. But this allows you to not start from scratch. So it alleviates that pressure right away to start thinking of ideas. When you have all the ideas next to you, it is wonderful. Number two is to chop once for the week wherever you can. So, this is a really great strategy for produce, especially. But really, if you are feeling overwhelmed by the thought of meal prep, when people talk about meal prep, don't think about meal prepping, but think about just produce prepping so that when you get home from the grocery store and you get all of your groceries loaded in, focus on not putting those vegetables in the fridge right away, but to just take a little bit of time to clean them and to chop them or get them prepped however they can and get them in the fridge already cleaned and chopped. And if this even feels overwhelming to you and you're like, I can't prep my produce when I get home, I'm so tight on time. This isn't going to, make any things any easier for me for the rest of the week. Although I strongly encourage you to try it and see how much easier the rest of the week goes. But even if you can't do that, when you are getting ready to prep a meal, just chop extra for the rest of the week if you think you're going to need it. So if you are chopping onions for a meal and you didn't get to that before, then if you're chopping onions, if you have more meals throughout the week that are going to need chopped onions, go ahead and just, you're already in the process. You're already dirtying all of the utensils and the cutting board. You're getting your hands full of onions. Just chop extra and get it into a mason jar or some type of storage container and get it into the fridge, because then your onions are chopped for the rest of the week and all you need to do is open up that jar and sprinkle them on whatever you're doing, or in a pan where what if when you're sautéing something, and you don't have to chop onions for the rest of the week because you've done it once and you chopped enough to last you, and you took that task and you made it simpler for yourself for the rest of the week. So you can apply this anywhere, no matter what you're prepping. But if you have time when you get home, I strongly encourage you to try to do all of this veggie prep at once when you get home, because it does really make the rest of the week go so much smoother. Strategy number three is to focus on prepping different elements of a meal instead of doing full meal preps. And what I mean by this is that when people are doing meal preps, a lot of times they're focusing on making a meal for, all 5 to 7 nights of the week. And then they're making a lunch for all 5 days. And then they're making a breakfast for all 5 days. And this works really well for some people. Sometimes they're cooked, sometimes they're uncooked, and then you just have to cook it later in the week. But some people love this, and some people are like, absolutely not. I don't want to pre-cook all my food for the whole week. I don't want to be eating the same thing all week. There's so many different elements to it. If it works for you, great. But if you like the idea of having things prepped, but you don't really like the idea of cooking it all at once and then eating leftovers all week, or having the same thing all week, focus on the different elements of your meals, of things that you enjoy, and focus on prepping those only instead. And a lot of times this does, depending on how you eat, a lot of times this does end up being, a lot of vegetables and produce, which is great because if you're doing that produce prep, then you're really ahead of the game here. But as an example, I wanted to kind of talk about what I mean to give you something a little bit more concrete of what I'm talking about here. So, when you're focusing on prepping different elements of a meal instead of the full meals themselves, what you want to do is maybe this week you're going to have lettuce and you're going to chop a bunch of maybe romaine lettuce, let's say. And then you're going to do a lot of random vegetables that you're going to prep, and you're going to get them all cleaned and chopped. So, you're doing, onions, and maybe it's yellow onions, maybe it's red onions, maybe it's tomatoes and broccoli and cauliflower and carrot sticks and celery. Maybe you're making a batch of guacamole, like whatever you want for vegetables. You're getting those prepped. And then you have chicken in your freezer. And you need to pull it out, the night before so that it has time to thaw and have that habit. the night before or at dinner time to look ahead and pull anything out of the freezer so it has time to thaw. That's a really great habit to have. But basically, you're having all of these different elements of your meals. You're having your lettuce chopped because that is an element of a meal in several different ways. You've got vegetables ready to go. You've got chicken ready to go. And those are the things you're kind of focusing on, not the meals themselves. Well, what can you do with that different variety when you have all those different elements of meals? What can you do with that? So, an example of this might be to have chicken and then make some rice and have some oven roasted veggies. So pull some of those vegetables out, pull some of that chicken out, make a batch of rice, throw the veggies in the oven with some olive oil and salt and pepper and garlic powder or whatever you want to do to season those up, maybe some red pepper flakes, and you put those in the oven and you've got a really good meal with all of those things that have already pretty much been prepped. This is a super simple meal because you've done a lot of the prep work ahead of time and now you're throwing together a really quick and healthy, delicious meal with all these different elements that you've already done, even though you didn't actually prep the full meal. Well, maybe you made some extra rice, right? So think about that, and we're going to hold on to that extra rice. And then the next night, you're going to do grilled chicken. Like maybe you already grilled it with the oven roasted veggies. We don't know that, but maybe you grilled some extra chicken. And now you're going to pull that lettuce and you're going to chop up a little bit more of those veggies, not necessarily to clean them. They're already cleaned and chopped. You're just going to dice them up a little bit smaller into a salad. And now you've got a grilled chicken salad for dinner the next night. Well, then you can take the next night and you've got a chicken burrito bowl and you can pull some of that rice back. You can make some beans and you can saute up some of those veggies with your peppers and your onions and just saute those. You've got all the different elements of the same meal using all these same ingredients, but you're creating a whole new meal. And then maybe the following night you are ready for some sort of, homey warm soup. So you pull out some broth and you take the leftover chicken and maybe you're making some sort of vegetable like chicken and vegetable soup. So maybe you're doing like a chicken noodle. Like you can use that, carrots and celery or whatever you're pulling in. You can make some type of chicken and vegetable soup. Or maybe you're taking the leftover beans and that like spicier seasoning, maybe some taco seasoning, and you're making a chicken tortilla soup. And you're pulling some of the leftover ingredients that you have and throwing those into a soup. And now you've got a soup that is really hearty and like homey and warm and comforting. I'm in the middle of winter right now in Minnesota. I believe it is about 25 degrees below zero right now. So I'm thinking about these nice, warm, cozy soups. But there are so many ways that you can use this method about taking the different elements of meals, knowing that you like these types of ingredients, and then putting them into a variety of different meals using the same ingredients. And then not only are you having all this prepped and being able to throw these different meals together very simply and quickly because you have all of this prepped ahead of time, but you also have a bunch of fresh vegetables ready to go for snacking or to pack in your lunch or anything like that, and they're ready to go because you have it all done. So it just makes it so much easier, and it's less stressful to focus on just the elements of these meals and having those prepped rather than the full meals themselves. Okay, strategy number 4 is to always have an easy backup plan in place. So, ideally, we are planning our meals and we are, making our full weekly menu and everything goes according to plan. But life happens, that is not always the case, and sometimes we need a really easy backup plan to get us out of a pinch. Like sometimes it just we don't end up having enough time to put something together or something just really goes off the rails. Maybe you end up getting home really late one night and you don't have time to put it together. Who knows what happened, but sometimes things just don't go according to plan. So, having a backup plan in place at all times is a really easy way to kind of get you off the hook and alleviate that stress of all of a sudden not having a plan work out. And it helps save money if you weren't planning on ordering takeout or DoorDash that night and you have a plan in place now. You don't have to rely on that. So, your backup plan is going to be different for everybody. So, sometimes this might look like you are making lasagna one night and you just end up making extra and throwing it in the freezer so that you have a really easy go-to meal later, whenever it works. That would be a good backup plan that you already have a meal that's already made. It's in the freezer. All you have to do is pull it out and throw it in the oven. That is a great way to have a backup plan. Another one might be when you are making that soup, make extra and get it in the extra into the freezer because then when you have a night where you need a meal that's pretty much already done and you need a backup plan, you can pull that out, pop it into a stock pot, and then let it warm up and you have a nice cozy soup. Or if you know ahead of time that all of a sudden, like it's going to be a tight night, but you know that early on in the day, throw it in a crock pot and then you have it ready to go as soon as you get home. You've got a nice warm batch of soup already cooked and ready to go. All you have to do is get home and eat it. Like that's a great way to do it. Another thing might be to just simply have frozen pizzas in the freezer, and that can be your backup plan. Like you've got something to feed your family if your plan does not work out. Another one might be something that is focused on pantry, and maybe you have, spaghetti noodles and you've got pasta sauce, and you have some ground beef in the freezer. And if you need a really quick meal, your backup is spaghetti. Like it's just as simple as that. So there are different ways that you can do this, but knowing what your backup is a really great thing to have kind of in your back pocket because if you get really busy and all of a sudden like the meal you planned is just not going to work out tonight and you need something super quick and easy, then you've got a backup and it doesn't ruin your plan. You still had that as in place as a plan. It was your backup plan. And you can still move forward knowing that you didn't fail at your meal planning routine. You just needed a backup and you already had it in place and you can move forward. So that is something that really alleviates some of the stress. And the fifth strategy is to not be afraid to utilize your leftovers. Now, this can be in different ways. So if you are somebody that loves eating leftovers, like straight leftovers, like if you made, a meal and you want that same exact meal the next day, you use it for lunch the next day or use it for the next dinner night and use the same thing and just eat it a second time. We made pad thai the other night and we made so much because we wanted leftovers. We ended up making more than we had anticipated. So we actually had it for lunch the next day and dinner the following day. So we had pad thai 3 days in a row, but it was because we purposely made extra. We had intentionally made extra for 2 meals, but not for 3, not for 3 days. But it worked really well because then it took that stress off of having to do more meals for the rest of the days. So we were able to utilize leftovers. Now, sometimes you're eating it straight leftovers like that, where you're eating the same type of meal, but you could also think about this as just the different elements that we were talking about before, just prepping those different elements and utilizing it as leftovers, but they're not actually leftovers because you didn't actually put them into your meal. So this example might be like if you're browning ground beef for that lasagna and you're putting that together and you're getting a batch in the freezer and you're making some for tonight, just brown extra ground beef and you can use it for tacos tomorrow night. Or if you are grilling chicken for salads tonight, clean it and grill extra so then you can shred it up for chicken enchiladas on Thursday. Like whatever your plan is, think about what you have going on ahead in the future and you can make it easier for yourself if you're already going through the work of prepping some of these things. Do more now so that you can apply it to your future meals and it just eliminates so much work for you for throughout the week. And by starting to build this habit, it just makes meal planning so much easier, makes it so much simpler, and they are very effective strategies. So before we log out here, I'm just going to quickly recap those 5 effective strategies for meal planning. Is number one, don't start from scratch. brainstorm your ideas, utilize those meal lists, and look back at previous weeks in your calendar if you need to. Number two, chop once for the week wherever you can. So, especially before it goes in the fridge, that's a great time to do it. But if you are doing it throughout the week and you know you need that particular item later as well, just chop more now, get it done. You're already in the mess, just do more now, and then you made it easier for your future self and you have it ready to go. And number three is to focus on prepping different elements of a meal instead of full meal preps. So focus on, the lettuce, the veggies, the different meats that you have, and then use those different elements to combine different meals and do different combinations so that you're using the same ingredients, but you're doing different meals. And that's just going to make things so much easier. And you've already got a lot of it prepped. So it just makes meal planning super simple. Strategy number four is to always have an easy backup plan in place for when your plans go off the rails. And number five, don't be afraid to utilize leftovers. That means straight leftovers or just the same ingredients that you might be using for a different dish later on in the week and use those leftovers in quotes so that you can make things just so much easier on yourself. And like I said, if you need to go back and listen to episodes for an actual meal planning method, you can go back to episode 36 or 47 if you want to use my step by step meal planning routine and make it your own. I hope that was helpful for you, and I will catch you back here on the next episode.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.